Today we're going to make dog food for our dogs. As I mentioned in a different video, our dogs are kind of stinky, and we read online that if you make your own dog food, the dogs will be less gaseous, right? They'll have a little less farts. So we started making this a few months back, and the dogs really have improved significantly. They don't smell nearly as bad as before. So the first step to making dog food is you're going to cook some rice. We'll put the recipe on the notes of the video, but the main ingredients are going to be meat and rice and then a bunch of vegetables. And what we do is we mix about 2/3 of this food with a commercial dog food. I'll explain a little more why we do that later, but yeah, I went online. There's a website that helps you put together dog food recipes. I'll put a link to that in the notes as well. But basically, this recipe is what we've been using pretty much for several months now. The dog's fur has definitely gotten softer and a little shinier, so they seem to be doing well on it. The vet that we take the dogs to said that our dogs are in perfect weight, very good health. So they haven't been losing weight and or gaining too much. So I think we've got a good balance here. Once again, I'll put this recipe in the notes, but I'll also link to the website where I created the recipe from, because they have a setting where you can go in there and put in the different things that you want to put into the food, and it'll tell you the quantities to use. But the first thing, as I mentioned, is going to be long grain white rice. We buy a big bag in bulk from Costco just because it's the cheapest place, but you can get, any kind of rice that you want that, you buy at the grocery store. We just buy this because it's cheaper. You basically are just going to measure it out and cook it. So you want to cook it ahead of time so that when you mix it in with the meat that you're going to cook, everything kind of can mix together and you'll have it ready to put in the refrigerator or the freezer. We like to cook ours in an Instapot. You can do it in a rice cooker, you can do it on the stove, whatever way you want. But for us, we're gonna cook 6 cups of this right now. So 6 cups of rice to 6 cups of water. Put that into the Instapot and set it on the rice setting, and it'll cook until it's ready, and then it'll beep and let us know. That should make approximately 12 cups of rice. Our recipe requires us to have, I believe, 12 cups because we're gonna double it. So our one recipe is a 6-cup recipe, and we're gonna double it. So okay, we got 6 cups of rice put in here. I just use a regular old measuring cup. Now this does not have to be cups, right? You can use whatever, as long as it's an equal 1-to-1 ratio. So it could be like, 6 bowls or 6 whatever you want to put in there, or 2 of whatever you want to put in there. It doesn't matter. As long as you put the same amount of water to rice, you'll end up with a recipe that works in your Instapot. Of course, if you're cooking this on the stove or in some other rice cooker or whatever, follow the directions for whatever that is. But the Instapot works very well if you do a 1-to-1 ratio. And then what we do is we tend to put a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons more of water, and that usually ensures that the rice doesn't dry out. So once you have that in there, just put the rice in the water inside of it. We don't put anything else in here for the dogs. If we were making the rice for ourselves, we of course would put some, other flavorings in there, but we don't. The dogs don't need anything else. So for the Instapot, it's real simple. You cover it up. You make sure that you're not on venting. So there's a little thing here that says venting, and there's the one that's sealing, and we want it on the sealed side. So you do that, and then you go to the front, and your Instapot may be a little bit different, but if you're using it or if you're new to an Instapot, basically there's some preset settings. We have rice right there. You just push the button, and then after a few seconds, it'll beep. It'll start heating up, and then basically when it comes to temperature and it's sealed, it'll cook for 12 minutes, and then beep and let us know it's done. So while that's cooking, what we're going to do next is we're going to start the meat. So now that we have our rice cooking, the next thing we want to do is we want to start cooking our meat. So in a other video of ours, when we reviewed our Cabela's meat grinder, we were making this meat. So really, this is all just ground pork for us. You can use other meats, right? You can use fish, you can use beef, you can use chicken, whatever you want to use. We found that ground pork is both economical because we can buy the meat very cheap per pound and grind it up ourselves, and the dogs love it. So it's working out well for them. I'm sure chicken is also good, but we'll occasionally, like if we go fishing, we'll throw some fish in here. I think last time we caught some bluegill, and we had thrown the bluegill in there. Some fish that I wouldn't necessarily usually eat. I'm not a big fan of panfish, but the dogs like it, and it adds a little extra. The other thing that's in there is just some fat. The recipe that you'll get from that website does list specific fats that you should use. So just follow that. We put some in here just because we want to cook it down with the meat. But basically what we're going to do is we're just going to cook this down until it is, cooked. So we want this to be cooked kind of thorough, pretty much through, because we are going to save this in the fridge, some of it, and then we're going to save a bunch in the freezer. And when it's in the fridge, I don't want it to start going bad. So I'm sure that the dogs would be happy with it if it wasn't cooked, all the way through. They would probably like it even better if it was a little raw. But we want it to stay good in the fridge for a few days, and I don't want it to be partially raw and going bad on me. So yeah, so you basically just turn this on, and then we'll stir it up and stir it up and stir it up until it's done. And once again, I do this while the rice is cooking. So the rice is on auto here. It's cooking its rice. This ensures that when the rice is done, we can then just go right over to the meat, and we can start mixing these things together. There's a third set of ingredients that we're going to be cooking as well, and they're going to go into this pot here. Those are going to be vegetables. I'll review those here in a minute once I get all the vegetables out. Okay, so right now the meat has started to cook. You can see it's starting to steam. It'll start to sizzle. What I do is I tend to start it at high, and then I'll turn it down to like a medium high, and just keep mixing it and stirring it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add all of the vegetables into this pan to warm them up. They don't have to get cooked like significantly all the way through. It's good with the green beans and stuff to cook them through, because the dogs don't really like them when they're crunchy. So we do cook it, but we don't worry about getting it like all the way cooked through, because they won't go bad. And just as a reference, I figured I would show you the recipe that we're using here. So our standard 1 week recipe for 2 dogs is 5.5 pounds of meat, 6 cups of rice, 1 cup of oil. The recipe that I created was for coconut oil, but you could use other oils too, right? You can just put that in. A half a cup of peanut butter, a cup of peas, a cup of carrots, 2 cups of green beans, and 2 cups of apples. I'll talk about it a little more in a little bit, but we also don't add extra vitamins to this. So there are some nutrients that would probably be missing for your dog if you fed them only this food. Now, I mean, I know there's wild dogs that eat, whatever, right? And they do just fine. But we want our dogs to be as healthy as possible. So we also feed them some store-bought food still, because the store-bought food does contain some of those nutrients that may be missing from this meal that we're creating them. So what we tend to do is we do 1/3 store-bought food and 2/3 of this, and that gives us kind of a balance, and we're sure that the dogs are getting the nutrients that they still need. I think this is probably still going to give them plenty, but just to be on the safe side, you could do this. I would talk to your vet though, or reference some other websites. There's places that sell the nutrients that you can like basically vitamins that you can put into the dog food. We just don't do that. We feel that we'll just throw a little bit of their standard dog food in the bowl, and that'll provide the other nutrients that they need while still keeping them happy and healthy. So okay, so we're going to take all of these other ingredients, which are the peanut butter, the peas, the carrots, the green beans, and the apples, and we're going to put them in this pan, and then we're going to start warming it up. So we've now got all of the vegetables added. So we have 1 cup of peanut butter sitting up there at the top. Remember, this is a double recipe, so in a single recipe we would only have a half a cup. But 1 cup of peanut butter. We've got 2 cups of peas, 2 cups of carrots. You can see my carrots are of the yellow and purple variety. Carrots are carrots, right? So you could use yellow ones, purple ones, orange ones, whatever you have. We got a bunch of orange or yellow and purple ones from our CSA, so we use those. You're going to use 4 cups of green beans and 4 cups of apples. And basically all we're going to do with this is we're going to turn it on and we're going to cook it down. If it's a little bit dry and you're worried about the stuff burning, you can put a little bit of stock in there if you wanted to, or just water. The dogs aren't going to care, right? There's a lot of liquid in the apples, so I tend to put the apples at the bottom and then put the other stuff on top of it, and then the apples will start letting out that liquid and help steam the rest of it. Really the most important thing we want to do here is get these carrot pieces to be cooked, right? Because right now they're crunchy, and we want them to be soft. So as soon as the carrots are done, you can turn this off. The meat, what we've been doing here, let me get a pot holder or a cloth because it's hot, is we're just stirring it, right, to cook it down. So this is just going to be ground meat that's cooked down. We just let that keep going. And as I mentioned earlier, the Instapot is continuing, and the Instapot is cooking right now. It's got 11 minutes left. And when that's done, we'll have the rice finished. At that point, what we'll do is we'll take the rice, we'll take the meat, and then we'll take all these vegetables once the carrots are cooked, and we're gonna put them in a big tub and mix it all together. And basically that's the complete process. We'll show you what that looks like here in a few minutes, but that's basically how easy it is. You just need to assemble the ingredients. To be honest with you, the hardest part is the meat. Getting all that meat ground up or cut up is kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, which is why we bought the new meat grinder. The meat grinder works terrific and makes quick work of it. But if you're cutting this all up by hand, which is what I've been doing for the last several months, it is time consuming and your hands get sore. We were cutting up all the pork or the chicken into little pieces that are maybe a 1/2 inch cube so that, it would be ground up, kind of like ground up meat. And it could be eaten by the dogs easily and mixed with the other stuff easily. If you make big giant chunks, of course, the dogs would probably only eat that and not focus on the rest of the food because they're dogs and they want the meat. But if it's ground up or small pieces, they'll eat everything else. So we're just going to let this cook. We're going to keep stirring this together. We'll keep stirring this as well as it cooks and make sure nothing burns. And then we'll get ready to mix it all together. All right, so one of the things that you have to keep make sure of is that the meat in the middle of the pot gets cooked. So you can see like some of it here is still pretty raw. And what happens is that some of it in the middle just won't get hot enough. So you got to kind of stir it. And when you stir it, make sure you turn it. So it's just like if you were, folding in some egg whites into a batter or something. You don't want to flatten them. You want to get in there and turn. So all the way to the bottom, lift up, and then turn. And what that does is it ensures that the stuff at the bottom, first of all, comes to the top, but also the stuff in the middle gets pulled over. So the stuff that was on the sides ends up in the middle. It's a proper way to turn this stuff and ensure that you get a nice even cooking. And do that every couple minutes and then just kind of give it a little bit of a break up there like that. And you'll end up with meat that is pretty evenly cooked and won't be burnt anywhere. So that's just a quick tip on how to do that. As for the vegetables, we're going to do a similar thing. Once the apples get going, which they are now, you can just take this and you can turn it. You see it's still kind of frozen in the middle. You can see the steam coming out of there. So we use frozen peas and frozen carrots frozen green beans because they're much cheaper and they're easy to store. So we'll throw those all in there, but of course they're frozen so they don't, cook so quickly. We just want to make sure we keep mixing that. The peanut butter will eventually break down and kind of form a sauce in there that the dogs definitely love. I don't know about your dogs, but our dogs love peanut butter. And this peanut butter, it's kind of weird because you'll put meat in it and it still smells peanut buttery. So the whole house will smell a little peanut buttery while you're making this, which is a little odd. But yeah, just mix it the same way so you get a nice good mix. You can see the apples, you can see the carrots, you can see the green beans, the peas, all of it kind of mixing together, which is what you want. And if you cover it, that will also help cook it. And if you get stuff stuck on there and you don't want to get it too messy, you can always just go back to your meat and help clear off the peanut butter that's stuck to your spatula or your spoon by putting it through the meat. Remember, all this is going to get mixed together anyway, so in the long run, if it's mixed together now or later, it doesn't really matter. You don't want to lose any of that peanut butter, and you don't want it on your countertop because it'll be all sticky and gross. So yeah, clean it off, take your lid, put it back on, and let things cook. So here we have it boiling. You can see that the vegetables have kind of all mixed together. There's like a stewy kind of consistency. What I did is I also added about, a quarter cup of water, half a cup of water to this, just to kind of give it a little more liquidity, or a little more liquid. Yeah, a little more liquid. So basically, you just want to keep this all submerged in here, keep it mixed up. You can see the peanut butter is all kind of mixed through. And wait till the carrots are softer. The dogs really don't like crunchy carrots, at least mine don't. So once those get softer, you're ready to go. The other pieces of the meal are done at this point. We've got the meat fully, let me grab my towel here. We've got the meat fully cooked. I've turned that down so it's just steaming away, continuing to stay warm. And then over here, we have the Instapot, which is finished. It beeped 5 minutes ago and said it's all done, so that is just cooling down now. So I'm gonna actually hit cancel on this to turn it off and then give it some time to naturally depressurize. So it'll lose a little bit of the steam there and be ready to go. Once this is finished in about 5-10 minutes, the Instapot should be done, and then we'll be ready to start mixing these components together. So, Okay, so we've got rice put in this bin. As I said earlier, this is a double batch of the recipe I'm going to post. So this is 12 cups of rice that is freshly cooked. And now we have all of this meat, which was 11 pounds, I believe. You notice there's a lot of liquid in there. That's okay. Just throw it in and mix it together. And then we're going to do the same thing with all of the vegetables. I'm going to actually do this way. Please excuse the back of the pan. But now basically all we have to do is the easy part of this job is to mix it all together. So take your spatula or your spoon or whatever else you have and just kind of turn it. You're basically going to make like a rice dish, if you can think of it like human food, for the dogs. And then we're going to let it cool for a bit before, of course, you feed it to them because they would not want to eat this super hot. It's not going to be good for their mouth. But after it's ready, you are going to cool it down for a bit like this in a pan or in a bucket or a bowl or whatever you use. You can even cook it inside of one of these pans here if you're only doing a single batch and mix it in there. We find the double batch is a little difficult to mix in a pot. So a food safe 5-gallon bucket or one of these buckets from Cabela's or any food service company, you can get these pretty inexpensive. I think this was like $9. Then you can mix it in here and it even has a cover. But basically when we're done, what we'll do is we'll put it into some plastic bags or plastic containers and we'll feed this to the dogs, you know, every time that we feed them. We feed our dogs twice a day. So twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, they'll get this and a little bit of regular dry dog food. Now, like I said earlier, the reason that we continue to use the regular off-the-shelf dog food is because we believe, or at least I believe from what I've read, the dogs have some specific nutritional requirements that may not be met by this mix. And I really don't want to go out buying a bunch of vitamins and try to measure all that out and figure out what's this and what's that. And that area of the world seems to be very unregulated. So I'm thinking that it's just easier to add a little bit of regular dog food to their mix, being that companies like Purina and others have already figured out what your dog needs in order to survive. So they put all those nutrients in the food. So we'll use that as a supplement to this food. But as you can see, this actually looks pretty good, right? It's rice, it's meat, it's peas, it's green beans, and it's carrots. There's some peanut butter in there, so I'll be honest, the smell is a little weird when you're in person. It definitely has a pretty strong peanut butter smell, but that's not bad. The dogs like it. We tend to feed our dogs, and our dogs are fairly large dogs, right? They're not giant dogs, but they're definitely not small. One is 80 pounds and one is 60 pounds. What we give them is about a half a cup of dry dog food, or maybe a little less than a half a cup of dry dog food. And we give them a half a cup of this in the morning and then the same meal in the evening. Now, sometimes we'll give them a little extra of this mixed in with it because, you know, if they've had a busy day, running around a lot, exercising a lot, then, you know, we want to help them replace those calories. But in general, you know, about a little over a cup of food per meal is what they get. And they definitely seem to like this. You know, you'll want to tailor that to your dog depending upon what kind of dog you have, how active the dog is, you know, what its metabolism is like. But basically, this is what it's going to look like. We'll show you when when this is cooled down, what it looks like when we mix it with the regular dog food. And when I say mix it, I just mean put on top of it. But yeah, we'll show you what that looks like and how the dogs react to it. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the way that we feed the dogs with this dog food is we give them some commercial, dry kibble, and then we put this with it. So right now what I have is I have about a half a cup of our Iams dog food that our dogs have been eating for years. And you can see the dogs are very interested in what I've got going on here. And then what we do is we take about a half a cup of this meal and we'll put it in the dog food. So this is a third cup measure. Our half cup is currently in the dishwasher. So we'll kind of guesstimate it here. No big deal. Just kind of throw it in there. The dogs are happy to have whatever, So as you can tell, they really like it as he's over there whining. Right now this is still kind of warm. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off. So I'm gonna have to blow on it or something and cool it down. Once I get it cooled down, I'll get ready to feed them and show you how excited they are for it. Okay, I got them cooled down a little bit here. So now I'm going to bring these over and show you how the dogs react to them because they definitely like this food. So, all right, bud, watch out. Hey, sit. So we have a habit of making our dogs sit while they wait for the food. So stay, make them wait, stay, and go. And you can see they both love this stuff. They just tear it up. They are happy to eat consistently. I will say that it's a little bit of a bad test, because this guy right here, he'll eat anything. But our older dog was very picky, and he has not missed a single meal since we started feeding him the mist. He really likes it. He even whines for it now, which is kind of funny. He's never done that. He's almost 13 years old. He'll be 13 this winter, and he's never done that, and now he does. So they both, as you can see, enjoy it tremendously. It has definitely helped their fur. These guys are nice and soft now. Their fur just seems to be better and more lush. This amount that we made here will last us approximately about 2 weeks. So the way that we look at it is, for our 2 dogs, 1 recipe equals 1 week. So a double recipe will last us about 2 weeks. As I said earlier, what we'll do is we'll put this into containers. So we have a bunch of these real cheap plastic containers that we got from the dollar store. They're just inexpensive plastic. We'll take these and we'll put them in a couple in the fridge to get started, and the other ones in the freezer. And as we get low on the ones in the fridge, we'll just pull one out of the freezer as we go. We don't want these to stay in the fridge for more than probably 3 or 4 days. That way we don't have to worry about the food going bad. We wouldn't want any of this to go to waste, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the story of how we feed the dogs, how we create the dog food, and why we do it, right? Because it really does make them a lot less flatulent. They don't stink as much, and the house, is a much more comfortable place to be, because for a while there, having 2 of them was pretty awful. We've had 1 for a long time. This guy's only a year old, and having a second one was definitely trying. Whereas now it's much more, comfortable in the house. They're not as stinky, and they both seem to be pretty happy. So the vet also signed off on it. From when we took it in, explained what we were feeding them. They didn't seem to have any objections. And as I said, they both came in at exactly the weight that they're supposed to be for their size and their age. So yeah, doing well with the food, and they seem to definitely like it. As you can see, that bowl is totally clean, and this guy's still working on it. He's always been a bit of a slower eater though. So thanks again for watching. If you like the video or have any comments, please put a comment below. If you like it, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We talk about this and our house that we're building and the lot that we're preparing and gardening and all sorts of other stuff. So yeah, hit the thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell, and you'll get notifications when we put out new videos. Thanks again for watching, and if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments below. Bye.